Hello YouTube, I'm Galadite74, bringing you guys another video for my top 10 series. Very exciting stuff. Today's video is going to be the top 10 Generation 8 mods with an asterisk on it. Now, I'll explain what that means in a moment, but hopefully you guys have been enjoying the series so far. This is only the second video of 4 that I will be making. I was originally planning on uploading one a week, though with school and work being so hectic, I'm going to try and make it once every other week. That being said, this video is still going to go out a day late, so I do apologize for that. I'm going to really try and stick to it from now on and be a little bit more consistent in making sure this goes up on time. But what do I mean exactly by top 10 Generation 8 mods? This is mods that came out in Generation 8, which, you know, duh, of course, right? But the catch here today for this video, and the reason why titling it is going to be so hard, is that these are going to be solely mods that I use in this generation. I'm going to give you guys the big spoiler that I have not used Urshifu. I used Pulp for like 2 games, so I don't really count that, in draft at least. So those mods won't be on this list, and a lot of top mods won't be on this list. And it's not just what mon is the best of this generation. That does have an influence on it. However, this also has a big influence on what mons exceeded my expectations and how they compared to them, how much these mons fitted my playstyle, and simply how much I like the mon. You know what I mean? There could be a really low tier mon that I enjoyed quite a bit, and it did better than I thought, and I liked it a lot, and that would be high up on this list. So that's just a forewarning before you guys go and start commenting like, oh, where's Polt and Urshi and all the other top mons, and why is this mon low? That is why. So, you know, I'm just letting you guys know that now, so, you know, if someone comments something about that, you look like a clown in the comments. Anyway, again, hopefully you guys have been enjoying. I know my final video that's going to end this series. However, my next top 10 series video, I'm still on the fence about, idea-wise. So if you guys have any ideas, leaving a comment below will be very helpful for me, as well as just leaving a comment on what you thought about this video. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Would you like? Would you dislike? Do you agree? Do you disagree? All that good stuff. So, you know, I want to thank you guys for watching so far, and hopefully we won't make this video too long. So without further ado, I guess we can just get right into it. I do not have an honorable mention this week, but I do just want to start jumping into the top 10. So here we go. Number 10 is Stonejourner. Now, I wanted to have an asterisk, a little bit caveat if like I needed to play at least this amount of games with a mon. This is the only mon on this entire list that I have less than 5 games played on, so I wasn't really the biggest fan of adding it to begin with. However, I decided to add it just because the moments that Stonejourner did come to the games in UPA Season 1, I really felt like it had an impact in all 4 games it came. It was really well. It was a Scarfer for most of the games, but I did bring it once as a rock polish set, I believe. And this mon performed very well. I remember initially for this season that this Stonejourner was supposed to be a meme pick. However, when I saw my options in the final tiering, I was like, oh, well, Stonejourner actually legitimately gives me something to this team, and it's what I need. So instead of, like, you know, drafting like Pikachu or something, or, you know, some shit mon, I decided Stonejourner, right? I want to give it a try. It's a new mon. I never used it. It looks like it give me something. And oh boy, did it do. It did alright. The games it came, again, put in the finest of work being the Scarfer. And you see that highlight it had for this season. It was the UPA Season 1 Finals MVP. At least I like to look at it that way. It cleaned up in the end, basically. And the fact that Stonejourner did that in a finals game for such a low tier mon really fit my team really well. And it was never just a disappointment. It was always just like, oh, this could come in quite a number of weeks. Even though there was about 15 weeks, including playoffs, and I only brought Stonejourner to 4, I could have seen myself bring Stonejourner to a lot more games. So, you know, it's a pretty good value pick. Obviously, you know, it is a low tier for a reason. It does have its flaws and weaknesses. But I do recommend picking up, if you need a low tier rock type, you know, it gives you rocks, give you all the standard stuff that you would want. Good defenses, well, good defense. Spadef is trash, but, you know. Really good mon. I enjoyed this one quite a bit, and I highly recommend it. Moving on to number 9, though, we're going to keep on going. This is going to be Dracovish. Now, this is the reason why I put that disclaimer at the beginning of the video. because Dracovish is a pretty good mon. It's very good. So why is it number 9 on this list? Well, first off, I used it once in UPBA Season 2, and the team was like a quote rain team, quote, sorta. It was just built around a Pelipper Ferrothorn defense core, which gives me rain as an option. So I was expecting Dracovish to kind of just claim like 2 to 3 kills a game, but it wasn't as destructive as I thought it would be. It did fit my team very well, and it did, you know, even though it only had 9 kills, I feel like it did contribute to a lot more than that. However, 2 things I noticed about this mon, negative-wise, is that it didn't have like a standout moment like I thought it would, and I'm not a big fan of my best mon being hard-walled by certain mons. Like, I typically like Pokemon, like my best Pokemon, to have at least a fighting chance against other mons, like every other mon in the game almost. But Dracovish, like any water type with like a water immunity, it's just has a really rough time getting past it. That's for the negatives though. I still really enjoyed this mon quite a bit. It hits like an absolute truck. Again, it fit this team very well, so I was able to get some good opportunities for this, or at least Dracovish allowed me to open up opportunities for other mons on my team. Is it a mon I draft again? Probably. It's just not as high on a priority list. But it is really good, especially in a draft setting. I think this mon personally is probably a lot better in like a tournament, like 8-mon setting where, you know, you're really oppressing the opponent to draft something for the Dracovish, as opposed to, you know, a 12-man draft. Still, regardless, a very strong mon. I did enjoy it a lot, and it is number 9 on this list. Moving to number 8 is going to be Appleton, a Grass Dragon type. And I used this pretty early in the generation. I haven't used it much since. And again, only 8 games played, but I did really enjoy this mon. It didn't come to every game, but this was in the beginning before Isle of Armor came out. So the options for how strong mons were quite limited. Hence why Appleton was a solid, like, I'd call it a mid-tier at that time. Obviously, looking like now at the present time, it is a low tier, and it is for a reason. But Thick Fat is a extremely good ability on this mon. Having a really bulky grass type with decent resists and like the weaknesses covered from the dragon typing makes the Leech Seed recover set very frustrating. And Appleton, you know, it's a good boy. Look at it. It's just a cute mon, which maybe puts it up a little bit. But I feel like it gave me a lot. And even though I probably wouldn't draft it in this current state of the meta, maybe if I really need a low tier grass and I don't have an ice weakness, but the way I draft, I typically have an ice weakness. You know, it just glued the defense together well on the team I had for PTL. And another thing is that I did have its standout moment. I did lose to Gremlin in the regular season, and I rematched him in the playoffs, and I had a what's the poison berry called? The poison berry, Kebia berry, I think it is, on this Appleton to 1v1 a Salazzle, and that's exactly what went down. And I killed the biggest threat to my team, and that really opened the door for other mons in that game. Without Appleton's bait set, I don't know if I would have won that quarterfinals game. So it was huge. It came up big in that game, and it was just a consistent backbone when I brought it throughout the entire season. So that's number 8. It's a cool looking mon, let's be real. I like this a lot more than Flapple personally, and, you know, just a good boy. But that's number 8. We're going to move on to number 7. Number 7 is Poltegeist. Now, I drafted this in UPBA Season 2, and this was a mon that I wasn't, like, not expecting to pick up, but it was just kind of thrown onto the team almost. And week 1, you're going to see here, it says week 1 sweep in 8 turns. The fastest game I've ever had was this game, where Poltegeist led off and swept. Sorry, Shay, I'm bringing it up, but this was, like, the defining moment where I'm like, wow, Poltegeist actually is pretty good. And granted, it only got 2 more kills throughout the entire rest of the season, but it did come to it came to 5 more games, got 2 more kills. It had a certain role in each of those games. I did try and make a strength sap set a few times, and the only reason that the set lost in UPBA Season 2 playoffs was I did get crit at one point, and that Poltegeist set was probably going to go pretty crazy. But regardless, it's still a really nice mid-tier mon. I didn't really need much on this team at that point. Again, another really cool design-wise. And it's one of those mid-tier mons that your opponent really has to prepare for. If you completely just don't prepare for a Poltegeist, it takes one turn, and Poltegeist has decent coverage. Obviously, it still is pretty walled by dark types, and especially dark types that resist grass. It's even worse. And normal types, it's not the greatest against, but having stored power is really, really nice. And just, I think because Shell Smash is one of the best setup moves in the entire game, that alone makes Poltegeist very, very strong. And it just has a strong special attack to begin with. So, it's always going to be a threat. It's a solid mid-tier mon. I personally enjoyed it quite a bit, and it's number 7 on the list. I don't have much else to say about it. Number 6 is going to be Galorian Weezing. One of the mons I used the most on this list. Not the most, but it's up there. I drafted this twice in PTL Season 4 and the BFO New Year's Tournament, which was right around, I think, the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, I forget. It might have been the next year. I personally don't remember. Anyway, this mon, I believe, got 4 kills in the PTL Season 4 finals. I got T-Spikes up, and I baited the Bisharp against mid, and that was a huge kill, because Bisharp was really good versus my team. And the T-Spikes just came in super clutch, and so that was like Weezing's standout moment. But obviously, it's came to 18 games, so it's been quite a pivotal piece in my defense. Very similar to Appleton, except I personally enjoyed this mon quite a bit more. I'm a big fan of Weezing, so this mon kind of spoke to me. Neutralizing Gas is very strong and pretty unique to this Pokemon alone, hence why I think people should try this mon out quite a bit, just because I feel like it will give your team quite a bonus, just because Neutralizing Gas, it's pretty unique and how you can prep with it. Good utility, this mon has insane utility. Poison Fairy is a pretty solid typing overall. You can run this mon offensively. I ran it mostly defensive, but I think I did bring offensive sets once or twice, and they did somewhat work out, which is really nice. You know, looks cool. Again, I keep bringing up design, but it's just really nice. I'm on that. It didn't really, like, it surpassed my expectations in the sense that I compared it to Weezing, and this mon is a little bit better than Weezing, you know, Weezing galore. Obviously, they are a little bit different because of the fairy typing, but which, I mean, this being your fairy is a plus and a minus in certain aspects, so you can look at it that way. But it does have a nice unique factor to it that fits my playstyle personally, and is the reason why it's number 6 on this list and why I enjoyed it in both of these seasons that I had it. Number 5 is going to be Grimmsnarl. Now, this is another mon I've used very recently, actually, and I've used it in 2 different seasons. You see, UPPA Season 2 and the Draft League World Cup. Now, surprisingly, when I first drafted this thing, I thought that I was not going to enjoy this. It's kind of got awkward stats. Dark Fairies have really solid typing, but it kind of wants to be offensive, but it has good utility with pretty average bulk, and its base power moves really aren't that strong. Spirit Break's like 75 base power, Darkest Lariat's 85, Sucker Punch is 70, like, they're just, you know, they're okay, right? So you're not, like, kind of quite sure. It's kind of hard to commit. You kind of have to commit to something in order for this mon to be good. It can't be a little bit of everything. So that's kind of what I learned pretty quickly when building with this mon. Luckily, the first season I had it, I had Ferrothorn Pelipper as a defensive core, so this mon could focus more on either being utility or just full out offensive, which is how I brought it, and it actually was very, very helpful. It made my offense kind of thrive a bit more with its screen set. I think Bulk Up is a very strong set on this Pokemon because you're able to bolster its defense, and if you invest into Spadef or just straight up run Light Screen Bulk Up, this mon can be a kind of a cleaner or a breaker, or just disrupts what the opponent really wants to do. And that was really, really nice. I think Dark and Fairy is slightly better as a combo as opposed to Weezing is Poison Fairy. Again, they both have their pros and cons. It's just that I think this mon is like, this mon's a better Dark type than Weezing is like a Fairy type, if it kind of makes sense to you. You know what I mean? It fits the category you kind of want it to be. And with both teams that I had, especially UPPA Season 2, but it also applied to the World Cup team, Grimmsnarl did fit those teams because it wasn't really forced into any of its roles that it could potentially do, which was very nice. This mon does have a pretty standout moment. I did get a nice reverse sweep in the wildcard game of my Draft League World Cup game. Obviously, that's not on YouTube. I might make a video out of that. If you guys want to see a video out of that, you know, leave a comment below. But I'm not sure if I'm going to do that yet. But that game was looking pretty bad, and Grimmsnarl, I brought a bulk up set. Bulk up, Taunt, Spirit Break, and Darkest Lariat, and it took a few outplaying and maneuvering to do, but we did end up managing to get a reverse sweep, and Grimmsnarl was the hard reason I won that game. So that was like its big moment. It had a really solid performance in UPBA Season 2 playoffs versus Addison. I know Grimmsnarl did quite a bit in that game too, and it also, you know, put the shit out of her in Week 8, I'm pretty sure. But you know, I also brought Scarf versus Jack in UPBA Season 2, and that did quite a bit as well. So, you know, there's a few moments in my mind that stand out for Grimmsnarl, and I've enjoyed this mod quite a bit. Probably will use it again at some point, but we'll see what the next generation, you know, entails before we really get into it. But that's number 5. We're about halfway done through this list. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed so far. And we're going to move on to number 4. So here we go, moving on to number 4. It's on the thumbnail. It is Galorian Zapdos. This was a mod that I used in 8 PM Season 4. This was my final Showdown League that I did in terms of consistently doing Showdown Leagues. Obviously, I did Autos World Cup, which was Showdown since then, but you know, I haven't been doing Showdown Leagues consistently anymore. But this mod was very, very fun to use. You see 11 games played, came to almost every game that I brought, and you guys know I'm a notorious Hawlucha hater. I think Hawlucha's dog shit, and I still think that, even after using it. So drafting this mon of the same typing was sort of like I already kind of thought this mon would be a little bit better in terms of how I play at least. I don't have to rely on setup near an endgame for me to actually do well, and I have actual decent, you know, I have U-turn, which is a little bit more consistent on this mon than Hawlucha, and a few other pros to it. And I really enjoyed this mon a lot. I went back when I was making this list and I realized that this mon didn't have much of a standout moment. It was just more so, as you see the note, I had Zapdos G, Aegislash, and Tapu Fini on this team, and those three together were insane. Arguably one of the best cores I've used this entire generation. Now, unfortunately, the rest of the team was pretty lacking, so, you know, if you watched my video last week, this team wasn't on that list. It's just mainly because the rest of the team kind of sucked. But Zapdos was a big piece, an offensive piece to this team because of how good that synergy was. I think Zapdos forces a hell of a lot of prep, like kind of like how Lucha does. Always a Rocky Helmet user on the other side guaranteed. You know, bulky Fairy, bulky, you know, maybe Ghost or whatever, something that resists fighting or flying. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Always something that you have to prepare for a Zapdos, or Zapdos will run through your team. CC Bravebird is super spammable. Not many mons that can actually like consistently wall both stabs from Zapdos. So that made Zapdos a really big threat. It gave a lot of openings for my team, and of course I still had U-turn. Also, another cool move on this mon is Thunderous Kick. Now I feel like I'm just talking about the mon at this point, but I bring it up just because it came in handy in a few games. I know one game I Thunderous Kicked a Mew, and then U-turn the next turn and did like almost its entire health, which is just kind of crazy to think about. So that's really nice. You don't have to run choice sets on this mon. You can run like bulk up sets. Sharp Beak I brought once or twice. Protective pads. This mon has a lot of different options, and it just fits the team really well. I would definitely recommend drafting this. I'm surprised I haven't drafted it again since. It's always been on my agenda. I just never got around to it. I think the reason for that is just because I draft a lot of different flying types, so I didn't want to stack up on flying types. I think that's the sole reason why I haven't drafted this yet. Again, at least. So, very fun mod too. It's very fun. And it's number 4 on this list. So, we're going to move on to number 3. Now, the top 3 kind of are separated from the bottoms, like 4 through 10, just because I think these 3 were the clear best 3 for me in terms of, you know, fitting my playstyle, exceeding my expectations, and all that. There's a very painfully obvious trend in these last 3 though that I'm sure you guys will pick up in a moment. So here we go. Number 3 is Cinderace. Now initially this was number 2, and at one point it was even number 1 on this list, but I did bump it down to number 3. This mon has the most kills for me like ever, at least tied. This and Salazzle. And it has a few standout moments, but I just put for a note, it's the most consistent cleaner of the generation that I drafted. If I go back to and look at every single team, every team that I drafted, and looking at like who cleaned up in like for this team. So for example, if I go to CGT Season 1, Latios was more of a cleaner than anything for this team. UPA Season 2, maybe it was Scarf Chandelure, or Primarina, or Scolipede, for example. That's a good example. But nothing was as consistent as Cinderace. Cinderace always performed in every game. Now, granted, I know in at least UPBA Season 4, it was Libero Cinderace, so it's a little bit easier to do that. However, even looking back at PTL Season 4, where it was Blaze at the beginning of the generation, it was always a consistent former, always just putting up damage and putting out kills. Again, I used it as a cleaner, but it also was a really good breaker in certain games. Obviously, I ran heavy duty boots the most, but I didn't limit it to that. I was fortunate enough to build teams to where I could get creative. I ran Choice Band. I know one of my favorite sets is Itemless Acrobatics or Scorch. I brought that like 2 or 3 times now, and it's worked every time, which is amazing. Well, it's worked for, you know, at least what I wanted to do. U-turn's really good, bulk up strong. It has pretty solid coverage. It's not hard walled by most things. Obviously, there are some mons that have good matchups into it. That's why you U-turn. Honestly, half the time, all you need is Powerball and U-turn, and then you have 2 moves to fit whatever niche you want to fill, which is the beauty of Cinderace. Really good offensive pivot as well as cleaner. Again, a lot of kills to show for it. Libero was supported pretty well on that UPBA Season 4 team, so hence why, you know, the stats are pretty nice there. And it had a hell of a run in PTL Season 4 playoffs. Cinderace came to every game and consistently did so much work in all those games. I'm pretty sure it cleaned up in the wildcard game, so and it cleaned up in the finals, I believe, too, after Weezing did all the work. So, you know, a lot of different moments. I could go through a lot of them. It would be here all day. I really enjoyed this mon. I've always been a big fan of fire types to begin with. I think it's a really underrated typing. So just having this mon at number 3 and me really enjoying this starter a lot, it meant a lot. And this mon has really grown on me quite a bit. So that's number 3. We're going to move on to our silver medalist of today's video, and that is Spectrier. Now this was initially 3, and I bumped this up over Cinderace for 2 reasons really. It's number 2, funny. Also a part of my UPBA Season 4 team, so that's the trend we're starting here. I've used it less than Cinderace, but this is a mon. It got banned in OU. OU obviously is not the same as draft, I get that. And the reason I bring that up is just because this mon is still stupid crazy in regular standard draft format. I feel like it's a mon you would look at, and while you would think it's good because Grimnay is a really strong ability, really good speed tier, you would think its coverage is really bad. However, you don't need coverage on this mon. You have like 7 usable moves, which doesn't seem like a lot, but those combo of 7 moves is so strong for no reason. I don't know why. I was thinking of Poltergeist earlier, and this mon is just better, like so much better. I got 1 sweep with it. I did a few more things than just that, obviously. Well, I did a lot more than just that. But you'd think, like, you run Shadow Ball or Hex. I ended up running Hex a lot more than I initially thought I would, just because Will-O-Wisp on a mon like this is very strong. You shut down a lot of Dark types, you shut down a lot of Norm types. The Dark types that are physical don't really beat you once you whittle them down a little bit. Like, you burn them, you switch out, and then they're weakened for later, and then you come back and they have to switch into a Shadow Ball, and then all of a sudden they're pretty low. And there's not many bulky Dark types in the high to mid tiers, so, you know, it makes Spectre's life a lot easier. But it also has, like, Calm Mind, too, so you can start boosting against, like, the special Dark types. Once they're also weakened, you still have, like, normal coverage. You still have certain coverage moves, like it gets Mud Shot, which is pretty strong against Dark types weak to ground, like Incineroar, for example. So, yeah, this mon has a lot of options. Its stats, I think, really help it out quite a bit, because I feel like they're all in the right places. It has a high HP stat and decent special bulk, good speed, again, really high special attack, and just with Grimnay existing, you really have to, there's a lot of pressure on your Dark or Normal to stay healthy to deal with this mon, or it can really start to carry and take away a game. I threw it on this team just because I wanted to use it, frankly. I ended up working out in the end, but initially I was just like, we're just going to use it to use it. And I was expecting it to be like pretty decent, but I wasn't expecting it to be like the star of the team. And granted, I Libero Cinderace, so frankly it wasn't like the #1 mon on this team, but again, very, very strong. It's like you need support, so like it's not like you should be like your round 1 pick. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting my words out. But if you support it as like your 2nd round pick and you build around it, it's a very, very strong mon. Highly recommend it. I'm definitely drafting this mon again at some point. And Ghost types are really strong this generation, so that could be a part of it too. But, you know, alas. Finally, we're going to move on to number 1. Hopefully I can get my words out at this point a little bit more clear. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed at this point. And we're just going to move on. We're going to move straight into it. My favorite Pokemon from Generation 8 to use in draft was Galarian Moltres. Now, this was pretty tough. Another UPBA Season 4 member, hence I really enjoyed my UPBA Season 4 team. And this video is kind of the reason why. Moltres, my top 3 mons, all being from the new generation, and I enjoyed all 3 of them so much. Now, I'll talk about Moltres Tree a little bit. Backstory, Manabuzz is one of my favorite defensive mons. Not my favorite, but it's like top 5. I really enjoy that mon quite a bit. So, I'm thinking to myself, I could draft Manabuzz in UPBA Season 4. Well, I can't because it's gotten picked at this point. Let's say hypothetically we can, right? Moltres G, and this specific team, was so much better just because I needed that nice offensive pressure I needed because I had a Rotom and Silvally already. And I had a Garchomp, but on that team, Garchomp was forced to be a little bit more defensive, so I had Cinderace and Spectre. Very strong. I want to add a little bit more. Moltres G was perfect. This mon, it has quite a bit of differences between Manabuzz, so I don't like to compare the two that often. But for this specific team, this setup threat is just crazy strong. I feel like Polteageist in the sense that it takes 1 turn to just kind of set up and win. Moltres G is very similar. In a good matchup because Dark and Flying is pretty spammable. With Berserk, you could run Agility, and then if they get you underneath half and you're running like Weakness Policy, for example, because Moltres G's bulk is insane, you will take super effective hits. You could be +3, +2 in 1 turn, and that's enough to just sweep a team. So, and you see that in my UPBA Season 4 run. I had 2 sweeps with Moltres this season, and I brought it as a pivot in most games where offensively I was a little bit scared to bring it, so I brought it as a pivot, and it was very, very strong. I personally believe if Moltres G got Roost, it would be a solid high tier mon. Like, we're talking like 15 pointer maybe, or something like that, if it had Roost. Still very strong. I've seen leagues underrate this mon quite a bit, so hence why that kind of bolstered it up a little bit on my ranking. It kind of set the stone for number 1, just because people overlooked this. Hell, I overlooked it quite a bit. For CGT, I'm pretty sure I drafted this mon, and then I dropped it for Bisharp. And, oh man, do I regret that looking back at it. Bisharp sucks. At least in draft, I don't like Bisharp at all. Moltres G would have been so much better. And just looking at it now that I've used both in draft for a full season, I definitely stand by that quite a bit. Actually, its design's badass, so let's just look at that. Fire Wrath is a sick move, and it shocked me when I talk about exceeding my expectations. I'm not a big fan of relying on Hurricane as a move, because Air Slash Moltres is pretty weak, to be honest. But I have Fire Wrath still as a stab option, and I did have to rely on Hurricane once or twice, but it wasn't like every game when I brought Moltres, its thing was to land Hurricanes. It wasn't like that, which made me enjoy this mon quite a bit. And I don't want to compare it to Torrentee all that often, and frankly, even though how much I kind of shit-talk Torrentee, I admit Torrentee is a very, very good mon. And this mon is a little bit similar to Torrentee in that sense, so where you don't have to spam Hurricane to get a lot of value out of it. So that's why Moltres G was like, wow, I really enjoy this mon. It fit the way I built that team and the way I liked building with it. It fit perfectly, and I wasn't expecting a crazy ton considering I already had a lot of, hard hitters on this team. And this mon turned out to be a standout, and that's why it was my favorite Generation 8 mon this generation. And maybe that'll change looking forward. Maybe next gen I'll use other Generation 8 mons and Moltres G will go down. But up to this point, I love this mon. I highly recommend it. Go draft yourself as a Moltres G. It's very fun. And that's my list. So, what do you guys think of it? that's going to be the end of this list here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Sorry I started rambling on quite a bit in my last 3. Again, I don't really script these. I just have, bullet points, and then I just start talking and going down memory lane. So that's usually how it goes. But let me know what you guys think of the list. Do you agree or do you disagree about some of these mons? Again, obviously no pull or Ishi or any of that stuff on this list because I haven't used them, frankly. I will say though, I do have some notable mons I did leave out that I have used, like Galorian Darmanitan. I only used it for like 3 games, so I don't really want to put it on the list just because I feel like I want to use it more. Inteleon, low-key kind of an oversight for me because I really enjoyed Inteleon quite a bit, but it was on a team that I really disliked, so I kind of forgot about it. But Inteleon would be like the quote honorable mention of this list. Corviknight I've used quite a bit. Frankly, haven't enjoyed it all that much. It was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like overly really good. It was just kind of existing on my teams. And finally, Caparaja, pretty similar, a pretty solid mon I enjoyed quite a bit, just wasn't as high on the list as these top 10 were. So, those were the mons I left out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Again, not quite sure what my next top 10 video is going to be, but I do know it should be up in 2 weeks from now. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. Thank you guys for watching so much. You guys' support really means the world to me. And hopefully I'll see you for the next video. Peace.